IQ Citizen and Friends radio show. Hear that around the world. This is live from Newcastle. Have a listen to these guys. Australia, you know how to fight. You've just got to know who you're going to fight for. Isn't that right? PJ, another superstar in the making, and how's this? When he gets a chance to run, you're looking at a future Attorney General of this country. How about that? Does it make you excited to know that they're going to come from your homeland? The future leaders like Shani and Bob and PJ. Let's go.
All right, Jace, you're dressed a bit differently today.
Yes.
Have you got something you want to tell Newcastle?
Yes, I'm not in disguise anymore. Last week, you saw me throw my hat into the ring.
We did, at the rally.
And I'm very proud to announce that I've been officially selected as the candidate for the United Australia Party for the seat of Paterson in the election of 2022. Thank you.
Jason, just on the seat of Paterson, where does it run so people who know if they fall into that seat or not?
The seat of Paterson runs from Maitland as the bottom left part on the map that takes in Curry, Lochinvar, turns around and runs all the way up through Medowie, all the way to Port Stephens. It's 1,123 square kilometres, which makes it about 40% larger than the nation of Singapore. So we've got a bit of walking to do. And if you're in the United Australia Party and you want to get involved, we're going to need your help. And that's why we ask you to join the party, a party, any party. Because on election day, we want to see yellow and we want to see orange and we want to see white and we want to see the colours of the future of this country. Because we've been let down. We've been sold out and we've been betrayed. Haven't we?
Absolutely. And I think all of us can agree, from what we've been seeing, and everyone here is very awake, we know that, that's why you're here, is that things are changing. Can you all notice the change that's taking place? Yes. Did anyone see Scott Morrison on the news yesterday talking about how 50% of the people in ICU with COVID are just with COVID? They're not sick with COVID. Did you see that? The narrative is changing. The thing I love about Jason's shows is he is alive with the statistics and the news of what's going on. Jace, can you tell us something that you've noticed recently that's changed?
Well, we reported this week on World Series News that with the vaccine in Australia hitting the record 93, 95%, depending on which state you're in, that our infection rate has gone through the roof, and Australia officially broke the world record for the most cases per 100,000 when it went over 400 just a couple of weeks ago. That's right. And whilst they pretend that they don't see those numbers and look the other way, we reported this week that in Israel, having gone now to their fourth jab, we didn't hold that record for too long because Israel went past the 400 into the 420 mark per 100,000. So it makes you stop and think that why is it that when those vaccine rates go up and they get boosted, that the infection rate goes up? Funny, isn't it?
The other thing I noticed, you might have noticed too, you used to be able to see the stats for Israel and how many vaccinations it had. You could see that around 90% it had one, about 85% it had two. You could see that only 45% it had three, and this is back in September where they got cut off from their vaccine passports if they didn't get the third shot. You could see that 55% of the Israelis were going, hang on, we're out of this. We're gone. And this week, those stats are gone. You can't find them because apparently, and this is what we're hearing through the grapevine, is that in Israel, nobody is touching that fourth one. They don't want to send that message out to the world. Because that fourth one just isn't going to take traction. So it's important to see, to look at these statistics. And it's important within the groups to create your own think tanks and groups that can gather and consolidate this information because it's being hidden from us very deliberately, very purposefully. So we're kept in the dark, so we don't make good decisions. But if we work together, in gathering this information, collecting it and sharing it, we'll make the right decisions and we'll know how to work forward in getting through this in the most intelligent way. Jace, tell me, where do you get your stats from?
I take my stats from official sources. That means government websites, official statistic collectors, and I also use mainstream news articles from around the world. And my favourite sport has become fact-checking the fact-checkers. And it's really interesting, you know, because I thought of something this morning because I got a 90-day, not a ban, but one of these will put you at the bottom of the news list, which happens to be with all of the people that I talk to. So if we're all at the bottom, we're all together anyway. But there was this great meme that went around last week where a little girl standing in front of a loaf of bread and said, for 5,000 years, we've all been eating bread, but all of a sudden we're gluten intolerant. And I asked the question, would anyone like to speculate? Well, I got a 90-day ban for that, for asking a question with a fact-checking article at the bottom that said, glyphosate does not cause gluten intolerance. Well, I never said that, and the meme never said it. So this is how censorship works in this world today, which is a really interesting point that's worth bringing up now, PJ. I don't know if you know this, but Google, through its parent company, Alphabet, owns 12% of shares in Vaccitech, which developed the AstraZeneca vaccine. Bill Gates, through his foundation, owns $10 billion worth of stock in vaccine makers, including Pfizer.
Gates is a scum! Total scum!
AstraZeneca just sold in March of last year $1 billion worth of stock in Moderna. Did you know that? So they're betting on each other's goods and services. And the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with Google, Facebook and Open Societies, which is owned by George Soros, are the funders of the Poynter Institute, which happens to own PolitiFact, the same people who put that fact-checking article on that meme. How's that? So that's called a stitch-up. If I was Kevin Rudd in 2007, they'd say, fair shake of the sauce bottle, some nonsense that those guys come up with to make you feel like you're getting leadership and you're getting led down a garden path. And that's the point of this, is that our leadership has completely let us down. You've got ScoMo out there with an approval rating that's around about what the inflation rate will be in May. And you've got that other bloke, Albanese, who's been in Parliament longer than... Yeah, exactly. I want to make this point about elbow. Elbow. You've seen that photo where they elbow each other in Parliament. They're mates, they're friends, they work together, they're in lockstep. Anthony Albanese will be the first ever, if elected, Prime Minister in May, and we know he won't, will he?
No.
No way? Albanese's election strategy is this. He's going to hide behind ScoMo, not say a word, offer to spend $500 million on a fast rail that he'll never get to build, because that's not even going to buy the land. And at the last minute, Anthony Albanese is going to do this. A Stephen Bradbury! And that's how he thinks he's going to win the election. The greatest fraud in political history. So what do you say? Elbow? ScoMo? Freedom? That's not hard, is it? Today's Q&A session, the first of its kind in a rally format, we've gathered together a group of amazing Australian people, all of whom have been affected directly by the tyranny that this government has put on us to make us take an injection that doesn't work, that we don't need, and is unproven, and it uses experimental medication. On the list today, we are going to do a quick Q&A with 6 guests, and the first person on my list, Pastor Bob. Come forward, please. Bob, can you please tell me and our audience what's happening in the church at the moment that you've noticed, and what's the change?
Unfortunately, within the church, Jason, what we've seen is an awful lot of people that are being led down the garden path. I might have made a Freudian slip there. They are being led down the government path because our churches are very much controlled by the government because of the charities that our churches own. hundreds of millions of dollars are being given to churches through their charities by the government. We've become dependent upon that money, and so what happens, the church leaders are in lockstep with the government. So we have weak leadership, we have a false message being put forward to the churches that we are to obey the government because the government has been put there by God, and therefore if we disobey the government, we're disobeying God.
That's not right.
Well, it's only right if the government is doing the good and godly and right thing. But when the government overreaches its authority, we have a duty to resist. We have a duty to disobey the government.
And how do we do that?
Well, first and foremostly, we do it by standing up and speaking. Pastors need to talk to their churches and say, hey people, it's time to raise up. It's time to lift your voice. It's time to be part of a community that speaks against government tyranny. There's no way in the world the church should be supporting the government in mask mandates, in mandatory vaccinations, in the vaccination of children who are not at risk of COVID-19. They face a greater risk from the vaccination. And so pastors should be speaking up. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing two things. One is the church complying with the government, which is absolutely wrong. It's a betrayal. But we're also seeing a church community develop where people who believe in Jesus Christ and trust Jesus Christ and know the difference between right and wrong and the liberty of the conscience are beginning to stand up together and band together and become a voice.
Can you explain liberty of the conscience, please, as it stands as a principle?
Liberty of the conscience is simply this. God Almighty created each and every one of us with a conscience. We know inherently the difference between right and wrong. And if we go against our conscience, if we do something that we know within our hearts is wrong,